Hi, I'm Emily Wilmson. Welcome to Full Circle, our program on sustainability at the City of Fort Collins. Today we're here to talk with our guests about climate change and the Climate Action Plan. And I have joining me today Bruce Hendy, who's our Chief Sustainability Officer. Welcome, Bruce.
Hi. Thank you.
I have Lucinda Smith, who is the Director of Environmental Services for the city. Welcome, Lucinda.
Thanks, Emily.
And Dr. Scott Denny, who is a Professor of Atmospheric Science at Colorado State University.
Thanks for having me.
Scott, great. So let's talk about the Climate Action Plan. What is the Climate Action Plan, and why is the city interested in recreating one?
Well, I can start with that question. The Climate Action Plan is something that Fort Collins as a community has been working on for over 15 years. We were actually one of the first communities in the nation to really embrace climate action planning. And our first Climate Action Plan was developed in 1999, and all climate action plans across the country do several things. They set a community greenhouse gas emissions reduction goal, and they identify strategies to help us meet that goal. And so typically, our Climate Action Plan will address how we reduce emissions from electricity, from natural gas use, which is used for heating buildings, from the transportation sector, and also from waste production and materials. And so that's what it's about in a capsule, but it's also a lot more because it will really look at ways that we can support our economy and make our community more resilient as well.
Okay, and is this is a document that the city lives by over a certain period of time, or what's the end product that will be going to City Council at some point?
Well, right now we're going through a Climate Action Plan update. This will be our third update to the Climate Action Plan. And yes, it is a document, but it's really a lot more than that. It provides a framework or roadmap on how we're going to reduce emissions while supporting many other objectives and goals for the city. And so it will look at strategies, and it's something that City Council considers. We want to have a lot of public engagement as we're updating the Climate Action Plan now, and then ultimately, hopefully they will consider and adopt a Climate Action Plan, and it provides a strategic roadmap that supports many other objectives and policies and sets the basis for council action, for budget, and for community engagement.
Yeah, and I would build on that a little bit too. I think the Climate Action Plan, especially the one we're looking at currently, which we can talk a little bit more about, is it actually drives a lot of what we as an organization do, which influences the community. I think when you talk about climate action, it affects so many facets of our community, from transportation to the way we live our lives and the kinds of, in our homes, and efficiency and energy development. So the Climate Action Plan, I think, is a fundamental aspect or guiding map for those activities that we do that I think eventually make our climate better. And that's kind of our goal, I think, by trying to do this, right?
So maybe that's something, Scott, you could address a little bit. Climate change in Fort Collins, how much of an impact can we really have? How does
Sure.
What are we talking about there?
Well, the climate is expected to warm globally, everywhere, because of the accumulation of CO2 in the atmosphere, which we produce by burning stuff that's made out of carbon, mostly coal, oil, and natural gas. We happen to live in a place that's actually really vulnerable to climate change because we're in a semi-arid, grassland environment. 5 million people in Colorado. We depend on the water to come down out of the snowpack every year and fill our reservoirs. We have a huge agriculture sector in the Front Range that is using irrigation water, and as you warm the climate, we expect more of that water to evaporate and be in short supply. We got all sorts of potential impacts here, and so Fort Collins is a leader really among cities in how the city has decided to respond to this kind of impact.
Okay, so it's more dealing with the impacts of climate change than it is really knowing that not running our cars as much or turning down our electricity is going to have an impact on what's happening around the rest of the globe.
Well,
right? Is that,
is
it both?
If I understand the city's intention here, the intention is to really to reduce those emissions inside the city limits. Just as the rest of the world needs to get a hold of emissions. And because the city is developing planning for really a roadmap to get to those lower emissions. It's a demonstration of what can be done. It's a playing a leading role in developing new strategies, figuring out how to support city services and the local economy in a way that doesn't contribute as much to the problem.
And I would add to that too. I think one of the things we talked about just before this show is the kind of perception by some that what difference will it make? Little old Fort Collins, 155,000 people here on the planet, of 7 billion going up. How can we make a difference, and why is it important? And I think the reason that I think it's important is because Fort Collins has about a 30-year track record of being involved in environmental issues. And as we look forward, what we're beginning to find is that as we develop effective strategies and as climate change becomes more prominent and prevalent, that if we can develop those systems and strategies and techniques and figure out how to pay for things and then show that and demonstrate that to others, I think that's the effective side. That's where we can begin to make an impact on a larger scale. So
I agree with what Bruce just said, in that even if Fort Collins emissions were to go to zero, while the rest of the planet stayed where they are, that wouldn't really change the planetary climate that much. But the more important thing is the idea that a community can develop these methods of emissions reductions that can show the way for other communities to do a similar thing. We've got, as Bruce said, this long record of leading in this area, and by partnering with local businesses, with the university, with the research that goes on here, the city is really kind of taking a lead role in showing cities how they can approach this problem.
And Scott, you're on the Citizen Advisory Committee that is part of this Climate Action Plan planning process. Maybe Lucinda and Scott, you can talk a little bit about what is the role of citizens on that committee, and who's on it, and
Sure, you should probably.
I could start by giving just kind of an outline of the committee. We've had a Citizen Advisory Committee in all the Climate Action Plan updates. This time, though, the Citizen Committee is quite a bit broader. There are 23 members representing really a wide range of stakeholder perspectives in the community, and I think that's really, really important so that, many voices are heard and come into the decision making. And so Dr. Denning is one of the members on the Citizen Committee, representing CSU, but also bringing, really expertise in climate science and discussing it.
Yeah, it's actually been quite an experience being on this committee. There's 23 people on the committee. I was asked by the university to represent CSU. We're the largest employer in the city of Fort Collins. There are a number of other major employers that are represented on the committee, different people representing different parts of our community. Everybody gets a voice. It's a very open and actually pretty exciting process to watch as this happens, discussing among the committee how we're going to go about understanding the emissions and how we're going to look at different options for emissions reductions, and how this can be put into a plan. And it takes many meetings. The meetings are 3.5 hours long. They happen at supper time, so it's kind of a major commitment by all these people.
Yeah.
But it's great to be part of the process like that.
So what is the process? When will this transform from, talking ideas with these citizens to city council action? And can you kind of describe I don't know, Bruce or Lucinda, who wants to take that one, but, what's going to happen next?
Sure. Well, I can describe kind of the nuts and bolts of the process. We have several players in this process. So like you said, the Citizen Committee is involved, but there's also a lot of analysis. So we have the Brendel Group and the Rocky Mountain Institute supporting this effort with technical analysis and with really evaluating not just the quantification of greenhouse gas reductions, but what are the levels of community engagement that we really need and that we could achieve? And what are some of the creative financing models so that the way to finance it is shared across different sectors and where we can really draw in outside capital. So there's all this analysis happening. The Citizen Committee is meeting approximately monthly. We began basically in June of this year, 2014, and we want to bring a final plan for Council's consideration in February of next year. So we're just getting to the point where all the inputs to the models are coming into place, and we'll be cranking the model analysis crank. And then out of that will come information about costs, benefits, impacts. And that's where the Citizen Committee and the community will have an opportunity to look at different scenarios, which way do they think we should go. So we'll really also be having a lot of public engagement around this. Basically, I think perhaps starting in October, but definitely in November, and then we have the holidays, and then again in January before it comes back to Council in February.
So, go ahead, proceed.
What I'd like to do is, the conversation was really about having a broad spectrum of folks represented on that committee, and I think it's important to kind of point out one of the reasons that we need to engage the community is that ultimately, if we're going to be successful, the community has to be a part of that success. And the challenge ahead is getting that public participation. We think as we look forward that community engagement becomes a very critical part of an effective climate action plan and strategy, because ultimately it's not just about the things we do as a community technology-wise. It's really about the public embracing the ideas and being able to make effective change and do it on a regular, continuous basis so that we can, over time, really make a difference. And interestingly, just one more point is that the climate action plan that we're working on would be, if we're successful in putting this together, would be one of the most advanced climate action plans in the nation. We're basically taking a climate goal and we're bringing that forward in a way that I think is really significant, that would really have significant ramifications. And the challenge that Lucinda mentioned was figuring out the strategies and the techniques and the tactics and how those things come together in a way that can really make a difference. And so that panel that we've engaged, that Scott's a part of and Lucinda's leading that group, I think is a very, very important panel.
Yeah, I've been incredibly impressed going to the meetings. So the Brendel Group is this engineering company group that's doing this analysis as a service to the city as part of this process. And they bring to the committee this various menu, if you will, of scenarios, and they look at the impacts on the emissions, they look at the costs, they look at the benefits, they look at the social aspects of these things, and allow the committee to really consider all of that together in one kind of package. It's a remarkable process. I got to hand it to you. You're doing a wonderful job letting us see the various choices that the city has in going forward. It's really cool.
So maybe one thing we should do is set the stage a little bit for what our existing goals are. What does our existing climate action plan say?
Sure. Well, in 2008, that's when the Council adopted our current climate action plan, and it has two goals established, one for the year 2020 and one for the year 2050. And so our 2020 objective is to reduce our community-wide emissions 20% below a baseline year, and we've chosen the year 2005, as have many other communities. And then our currently adopted goal for 2050 is to achieve 80% reduction. But the Council has asked us in this Climate Action Plan update to look at accelerating that 80% reduction goal. how quickly could we get there? And we're basing a lot of this on preliminary work done by the Rocky Mountain Institute that indicated it would be feasible to achieve 80% reduction by 2030. So we're now working on a climate action plan that is really working towards three things: looking at the current 2020 objective, looking at 80% reduction by 2030, and then ultimately carbon neutral by 2050.
Yeah.
And I think that 2050 is not that far away, but there's still a lot of things that could change with technology. So some of the strategies that the plan identifies for 2050 may be more general, but I think we're really going to try to hone in on 2030 and what are the actions that we need to get us moving in that direction.
It's a very aggressive goal, 80% by 2030. It's an amazing thing to contemplate. And I have to admit that when I first heard that goal, I was a little skeptical that the city could do this. But having seen what the engineering workup for these various scenarios looks like, wow, it is a doable thing. If you think about the current plan that's already in place, the emissions citywide have been reduced since this plan went into effect in 2008. At a time when the city is growing fast, when the city's economy is growing fast, and yet emissions are going down. It's fantastic. It's I remember being a little kid hearing about the 21st century, and it seemed like this is like insanely far out there. We're living in the 21st century. Welcome to the future. It's amazing.
Wow, that's great. So what do you think has led to that? What, and maybe this is a question for all of you, but are people driving less? Or, do we have younger people coming into the community who are biking instead of driving? What is making that happen, I guess?
Well, I'll start and I'll give it one and let you guys add into it. You talked about bicycling. Our bicycling in our city has grown dramatically. You can actually visually see it on the streets, how much it's grown. And we actually readily embrace that. And, in our current budget that is being proposed right now, I think we're looking at more grade-separated crossings so that bicycles can get under our roadways, and we're having bicycle programs on a regular basis, and I think that's one is a starting point. And MAX just started, right? MAX is one of our great strategies. It focuses a lot of people's driving and takes the need away and allows them to ride on a transit line. And so I think there's a lot of those. Of course, alternative energy is the one that we all hear about, and efficiency as well.
Yeah, I'd add to that, Bruce, that we are really fortunate in Fort Collins to have a very progressive municipal utility. And that's one of the things that's really is helping us and is going to continue helping us. And so through the programs that utilities offers, both education and information, assessments of homes and businesses, and financial incentives and repayment programs, that really helps the public and businesses choose to embrace some of these efficiency programs, and then also moving more and more towards clean renewable energy in our electric supply. So that's a positive thing, and there are a wealth of programs available through our utility. And I'll just put in a plug here for the Enviro web portal, where that portal lists the whole range of programs that the city has available that are environmental sustainability programs covering solid waste, renewables, energy, water, land use, transportation, et cetera.
I think, partly Fort Collins is benefiting from trends in the larger economy as well, that as new construction is being done much more efficient, residential and commercial construction than was true 30, 40 years ago. So as the built infrastructure is being rebuilt or being built really from scratch now, it's way more efficient. Cars are more efficient. The efficiency side of the U.S. economy is an amazing growth engine.
Well, and Scott, you've been a consultant to the state of Colorado on helping their buildings get more green, right? Or helping their staff training the trainers to be more energy efficient?
Did some work, CSU did some work with the Colorado Energy Office, working with the state to try to improve the energy efficiency across state government. And so this isn't for the whole state, this is for the public sector within the state. But they have very aggressive goals as well to try to reduce their energy use, their fuel use, their water use, and their waste stream. Yeah.
Great. So what are some of the things that you think will come out of this based on what you've seen so far that individuals can do, businesses, residents? What are some things that are likely to be encouraged? And again, I know you're still gathering
Sure.
public input, but what are some specifics, that as an individual I could do to make a difference with the climate?
One thing I think we'll
action
see is an expansion of solar opportunities. We currently have opportunities available for citizens and businesses to buy in different ways into solar programs, but I really think that as the price of solar comes down, we'll see a rapid expansion of that. And I also think we'll see a transition to more electric vehicles and using vehicles as a way to store and carry energy, just as a couple of examples.
Yeah, I think perhaps a little more on the edge would be geothermal district heating, looking at how our buildings interface with our heating systems in a way that is a low energy, low carbon emitting source.
Well, I would just follow up. Don't know if people realize this, but the price of photovoltaic panels, the nitty-gritty piece of material there that you have to install, has fallen 80% since 2008. Wow. So I mean, what other product can you think of that costs 1/5 of what it cost back in 2008? It's not that long ago.
No.
Yeah.
So if that kind of trend continues, that's just a game changer in terms of the economics of energy in our community and in lots of communities.
And as you know, we're also fortunate in living in an environment where wind energy makes sense too. And Platte River Power Authority, who's kind of our parent power provider, has just recently added, I think it's 27 megawatts to its portfolio of wind energy. So that's going to play a significant role.
Right. Yeah, and we also have just what Scott was saying made me think of ClimateWise, which is helping businesses on an individual business level become more efficient in their existing businesses, and that's grown a lot in the last couple of years.
In my mind, ClimateWise is really a great example of what climate action can do for a community. That program was born from our very first climate action plan and has been truly successful, engaging leading businesses and organizations and then bringing others along. And it's really an opportunity. It's just the right kind of fit for Fort Collins. It's voluntary, but it facilitates leadership and innovation and demonstration of multiple benefits in the business sector.
So if people want to learn more about what we're doing with the Climate Action Plan, they can go to our website, fcgov.com/climate protection, right?
Right.
And you also have the minutes posted there for the community or the Citizen Advisory Committee.
Right, there's a link right on that page, fcgov.com/climate protection, that takes you to a separate page for the Citizen Advisory Committee, and there all their work and minutes and materials are posted sequentially. So it's a great way for the public to follow it. And also the first 10 minutes of each Citizen Committee meeting, there's an opportunity for the public to come and make comments. So that's one of just many avenues for public input that we're making available in this process.
So it looks like we're running a little bit out of time. Any closing thoughts from each of you about what people should think about as you're going through this process of developing the next climate action plan?
I'd have to say I'm proud to be a citizen of Fort Collins. I've lived here over 30 years, and it's really wonderful to be part of this process and to see how the city is approaching this problem for the future, solving this problem for the future.
I'd just like to add that I think we all talk about being a world-class community. We hear that regularly, and we get ranked at the top on a regular basis. And in this case, we are doing a good job. We can do a lot better. We're looking forward to doing a lot better. I think if we achieve world-class in this case, it has far more value than just saying you're world-class. I think it has a real, definite benefit, and we hope, not only to our community, but to the rest of the country.
Great, thank you. Lucinda.
Well, I think I'm really excited too, and I'm really proud of the Fort Collins community for engaging in this and the leadership that we have to work on this. And I feel like It will provide leadership opportunities. They're going to bring benefits to our community. And I also think it really is about risk management, you know, helping our community become stronger and really proactively working on how we can preserve our quality of place. I mean, everyone, we love Fort Collins, and this is one really important thing that needs to be done to preserve that going forward.
Great. Well, thanks. Well, thanks to all of you for joining us
Thank you.
today. Thank you for joining us out there in the community, and we'll see you next month on Full Circle.